and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Cherilyn and this is Zendaya, and today I am gonna do an all-day cook slash bake with me kind of thing. Well, it might not be quite all day. I am making a meal for a family in our church, so I'm making the same thing for us for supper, and it's gonna be like a full meal. So I am making poor man steak with mashed potatoes, green beans, rolls, and then I'm making pumpkin roll for dessert. This is definitely a hearty meal, and I thought I would film it for you guys and maybe give you a little bit of meal inspiration and maybe kind of give you a glimpse of what like a full kind of Sunday dinner style meal looks like for us. And yeah, give you some recipes, some things like that. So I am starting off this morning. I'm gonna make the pumpkin roll first so that can chill in the fridge while I make everything else. And then, aw, thank you. You're a sweetie. And then I'm gonna make the rolls next, or get started on those. And then obviously the poor man's steak and the mashed potatoes and green beans. Yeah. Those will be made last and obviously closer to dinner time tonight. But I want to get started on like the dessert and the rolls, so that way if I have any issues, I have time to, yeah, fix it. So that's what we're getting started on first thing this morning, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you've been following my channel for a while, you probably remember that I made pumpkin roll last fall, and this is the same recipe. It's one I found on Pinterest, and it's really easy. So today I was just making a double batch, so I had one pumpkin roll to give away and one to keep at home for us. So for this recipe, I combined all my dry ingredients minus my sugar and mixed those together before getting a separate bowl and combining all my wet ingredients. So my eggs, my vanilla, my pumpkin, and then you add your sugar into that as well. And then once your wet ingredients are combined, you slowly add your flour mixture into those. Once I had the cake batter mixed up, I lined 2 pans with parchment paper and spread this out as evenly as I could on 2 separate pans and got it ready to bake. this is the first time you're seeing me make this pumpkin roll, I highly recommend going back and watching the video I did in the fall of how to make it, because when I went to roll this up so it could cool kind of in that rolled up position, I seriously butchered it. I think I should have just left it on the parchment paper instead of trying to pull it off, but for some reason I didn't do that. I'm not sure why. And so I had some issues with the cake wanting to break because it was so warm, and it turned out totally fine in the end. They tasted delicious and there was nothing wrong with them, but it definitely didn't turn out quite as pretty or wasn't quite as easy as it was when I had made it back in the fall. Once I had my pumpkin roll cakes rolled up and on the cooling rack to cool, I got started making the rolls. This recipe is a recipe I got from my mother-in-law, and it's super simple, easy to follow, but I added in my yeast to my scalded milk, and I think the milk was too hot and either killed the yeast, and I also did not let it sit long enough for the yeast to develop, and that ended up ruining my first batch of rolls. So if you happen to try this recipe or make rolls in general, make sure your milk is not too hot and kills your yeast, and also make sure you give your yeast enough time to develop before you add it in to the rest of the ingredients and actually make the dough. This recipe also calls for mashed potatoes, and you just need like 1/3 cup. So I had some instant mashed potatoes that I keep on hand for this reason. So I quick whipped up like the smallest bowl of mashed potatoes so I could measure out 1/3 cup to add in here to my rolls as well. I was making a really small batch of like 20 rolls, maybe not even that, because obviously we did not need that many for just 2 families, but the recipe actually makes I think 50 or so, and so yeah, it's a rather large recipe, and I was cutting it down so I did not need near as much as what the recipe called for. Okay, so I finished the rolls, as in we're doing their first rise. The dough is mixed. They're not totally done or anything, but I'm gonna hop back over to the pumpkin roll and make the filling so that I can roll them up with the filling and refrigerate them till this evening, so they have a lot of time to, yeah, just chill and all that good stuff. So that's what I'm gonna hop onto next, and then I think I'm gonna take, sorry, Zendaya's playing the piano, but anyways, I think I'm gonna take a little break then. Well, I can until my rolls have risen the first time. Then I need to separate them, like form them in a pan. They need to rise again, and then sometime this afternoon is when I'll start my main food. The potatoes and the beans are super simple because I'm just doing basic mashed potatoes. I'll show you how I'm doing them. And then the beans are canned beans that I just need to add some seasoning to. And so it's really only the poor man's steak that's gonna take me a good amount of time as far as hot food prep. So hopefully it won't take too long, and I'm hoping to have it all done and ready by 5 o'clock so I can, yeah, go drop it off. But anyways, that's what I'm working on at the moment. So next I got started on the filling for the pumpkin roll, and that was super easy. I had gotten my cream cheese and butter out earlier in the morning so it could soften and was really easy to mix, and then I added in the vanilla and confectioner sugar to finish off the cream cheese filling that goes inside the pumpkin roll. Time I was cooking or attempting to cook and bake in the mornings, and Dea was obviously awake and not napping, so it definitely was a little bit of a back and forth process, tending to her, giving her the stuff she needed, or taking time to play with her or draw on her drawing board while I was working in the kitchen, and then going back to what I was doing and hopefully getting things done. Hey guys, so I am back. It is quite a bit later and I'm getting ready to form my rolls before I let them do their second rise, and a little bit of whatever. My first batch actually flopped, and I think it is because I don't know why I didn't do this, but I did not let my yeast develop on, like, when I mixed it into my milk. I didn't let it sit for long enough, and possibly my milk was too hot and maybe just like killed it off. So here is my second batch. I'll show you guys what it looks like. It's been rising for about an hour, so it is pretty much doubled in size at least. But I really need to get these formed because they need to rise again before I can bake them, and by the time all that happens, it's gonna be, yeah, cutting it close. So I'm gonna get these formed, and then I'm gonna get started on some of my more main food. I think I'm going to peel my potatoes for the mashed potatoes. That way those can soften and are ready to go whenever I need to, you know, mix them into mashed potatoes. And then I'm going to start making my poor man's steak, and yeah, so I will catch up with you guys in a bit, but for now, this is what I am getting ready to do. Because I was making such a small batch of rolls, I did not even fill a whole 9 by 13 with the rolls that needed baked, and so they spread out a little bit more than I would have preferred them to when I was baking them, but they still turned out good, and this batch definitely looked a lot better than what my first try did, so I was happy with that. After I stuck the rolls in the oven to bake, I got started peeling potatoes for the mashed potatoes, and that is when my camera battery died, so I will check in with you guys in a little bit once I have my potatoes cut up and in some water on the stove to soften. Okay guys, so I have to have everything done in about an hour. My rolls just came out of the oven, if you guys can see here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put butter over the top of those. I have my potatoes softening on the back of the stove, and then I'm going to mix up the poor man's steak. The recipe for that is actually a Pinterest pin, so I will leave it down below for you guys. So I'm gonna mix those up so I can get working on those, and yeah, the rolls turned out pretty good. Let me just bring you guys closer and I can show you a little bit here. Hold on. Okay, here we go. So these ones, because I wasn't filling up the rest of the pan, they kind of spread out over here, but these ones look good, so yeah, I'll just keep these ones that are a little more odd shaped for us and give away the rest. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit of butter, just smear it all over the tops, and then these will be pretty much ready and can just cool. When it came down to about the last hour that I had to get stuff ready, I felt like I was just flying around trying to make sure everything got done. But here I'm mixing up my poor man's steak, and I'll leave the recipe down below for you guys. I just mixed together all the ingredients, and I opted for breadcrumbs instead of cracker crumbs, so I wouldn't have to crush all the crackers, and that worked perfectly fine. And then I used this hamburger chopper. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but I use this to mix up the meat because then you do not have to work it near as long with your hands, and I find that nice. So if you've never used one of these to mix up like meatballs or combine some ingredients with like hamburger, I definitely recommend using one of these. It's so easy and works really well to mix all your spices and everything together. Once I had my burger all seasoned and everything combined, I formed the poor man's steak patties and dunked them in some flour before frying them in a little bit of olive oil in a frying pan. You don't need to let them fry for long because they go in the oven for another 30 to 40 minutes yet, but you just want to get them nice and browned on both sides, and it helps them to stick together a lot better when they're in the oven as well. Once I had my poor man's steaks frying out, I made the gravy that goes on top, and you just combine cream of mushroom soup and milk, and I did 3 cans of cream of mushroom soup, and then I only added in enough milk to like make a good consistency gravy. I didn't put in near as much as what the recipe calls for because I felt like that was too runny. So yeah, you can do whatever you prefer, but that is what I prefer, and that's how I make mine. I was putting everything that I was taking over to the family from our church in disposable containers. So I had one here in the oven that was finished, and doing like its final cook or bake, whatever you want to call it. And then I had the glass dish on the back of the stove that was for our family for supper, and I was working on filling up that. So then I switched over and got started on the green beans. This is super simple. You could use store-bought canned green beans, but I had home canned ones. I just added in maybe 2 tablespoons of butter, however much you prefer, and turned them on low to let them warm. After I had the green beans on, I quickly stuck some butter in a saucepan on the stove, and I turned it on like a medium heat, and this is brown butter that's gonna go on the potatoes at the end. You just stick your butter on and kind of let it sizzle or boil until it turns brown. It's really simple, but it tastes really good, and it just adds a good extra flavor to your potatoes. So I just mixed up my potatoes, added in milk and butter, and I do it all by taste. So I don't have any measurements for you guys, but that's what I do for my potatoes. So back over to the green beans again. I add in salt and pepper, and then I just sprinkle some sour cream and onion seasoning over top. This is another thing I learned from my mother-in-law, and it tastes so good to have your green beans seasoned this way. So that's what I'm doing here, just back and forth with the different things until I have as much seasoning as I think it needs. And again, go by taste, because you're not gonna mess it up if you go by taste as compared to maybe just following a recipe. You're not exactly sure how it's gonna turn out in the end. By this time, it was after 5 o'clock, and my goal was to have everything done by 5. So I quickly loaded up all the food and Zendaya, and I had about a 10-minute drive to take it over to where it needed to go. And so I ran that over, and then when I got back, I worked on supper for us, which was super simple because everything was already done. So I put the rolls in the microwave just to warm for a bit, and then I got out the rest of the things that had been in the oven on warm and added some final touches before we could eat. Thank you guys for coming along with me today as I cooked. I love to cook, so I was excited to be able to share this meal making process with you guys and show you a little bit how I cook for our family. If you enjoyed the video, I would love it if you could hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you're new. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back next week with another video.